numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. So there I was, which is how all great aviation tales begin.
Every last one of them.
Every damn one of them. This is episode number 80? 80?
80, brother.
Is that the Ocho 80? Ocho. I don't know how to say it. Oh gosh. How awesome is that, Repeat?
This has been a hoot, and let's keep it going, man. That's all I can say. Episode
number 80 was Sal. Sal's got great stories. Sal, there is a very intimate connection between you and Sal, and I'll let you talk about that.
Chat a minute, yeah. Let's go first. Cow. First thing I want to do is thank Michelle Langseth. $50 donation directly donated to us on our site. Thank you so much, Michelle. We know that money wasn't just tossed in your pocket. You chose to work hard for it and then share it with us. Man, is that humbling. Very cool.
That is so awesome. And we really appreciate that.
More than we can express in words. I mean, words are just inadequate. But let's say you're in a position where you love the show and you want to do something for us, Fig, but you just can't throw any money at us.
How about write us a review? 5-star review, baby, and share the show. Share the show. It doesn't cost anything.
No, it really doesn't. And I've made it easy for you to give us a review. Go to sothereiwas.us/rate. And it'll take you to where you can write us a review. Choose your platform that you listen on, and boom, bang, zoom, bing, you're done. You're in.
Wait a minute. Did you say that was sothereiwas.us/rate?
That's what
easy.
I said.
That's too easy to get to.
I know it. I mean, I got to make it harder.
Even a knuckle-dragging mouth breather like me can figure out how to get to that. Come on.
There you go. Or try /review. That'll get you there, too.
Now, listen, if it's not going to be a 5-star review, give it to somebody else. We only want 5-star reviews. If you don't like it, just don't do it. Don't do it.
If you haven't got something nice to say, sit next to me. No.
Oh, my gosh. I know, right?
All right. Hey, how about emailing us, too? If you have any questions, you hear something you're not sure about, you got a question about the show. If you know somebody who should be on the show with us, including you, if you've got amazing stories, if you got one amazing story and the rest are all boring, give us that one amazing story. Chat with us. Let's figure it out. Let's get you on.
Here's the thing. You may think it's not an amazing story. Chances are it really is. Stories. Right. Everybody's got a story. We love all your stories. Let's let you tell us. Have you tell it to us so everybody can hear it. Jeez.
I mean exactly what you know. No, in all seriousness, and this is kind of how we started chatting about the show's inception, right? Have you ever been standing at a cocktail party or been at a dinner party, and the next thing you know, people are all asking you about your flying? And people are standing around listening in rapt attention to you. They want to know about flying.
Tell your story.
Tell that story with us. Let thousands of people hear it, just not the 3 or 4 people at the cocktail party that you didn't want to go to with your wife anyway.
Listen, if 10 people at the party want to hear it, trust me, thousands want to hear it. Everybody wants to hear your story, even if you think it's insignificant. If it's an aviation story, people love it.
Absolutely true.
I love it.
Yeah. Hey, sponsor this week is Robin's Bird Brain Designs. New lower prices on those coasters. She lowered them from in the $35 range down to the $25 range so that you can have a thoughtful Christmas gift out to somebody on your list this year.
She took care of me last year in a huge way. And I do too. And a big thank you to Chase Cole, Simplify Chase. Thank you for running our group on Facebook. Huge help. Thank you for doing that, Chase Cole.
Thank you, Marine. We got winter coming upon us. Man, when it's getting cold out, what's better than a hoodie with a "So There I Was" logo on it, right?
I can one up you. A fur-lined bikini with a hoodie over the top. That's the only way it gets any better than that.
Oh, man, TMI Fig.
Sorry about that.
Oh, well. All right. Yeah, you can get that at sothereiwas.us/merch. I put up a quiz tab on our website, sothereiwas.us, Nobody's taken it yet. I'm shocked. 4 good questions up there, and I want you to send me more questions.
Can I take it?
Absolutely.
All right.
Question is, will you pass?
I don't know. I'm kind of afraid to take it now.
Oh, yeah. Hey, and send us your photos. Tell us your stories. I've got up on the Facebook page, the Facebook group, some pictures of one of our Patreon supporters. His dad, Ken McCoy, we talked about him, and jumped out of an A4 off the coast of Hawaii back in the day, back in the 60s.
Earl McCoy.
So,
thank you, Earl.
Earl sent me a picture of his boys. We pulled out the background, sent it back to him, and he put them in front of a Blue Angel jet. And that's up on the Facebook page. That really cool looking photo. That's these young lads in their Halloween costumes.
They look like
Blue
very
Angels.
authentic, very tiny Blue Angels.
They do indeed. That was so cool. And then I had the privilege last week of going to the Jarhead Breakfast over in Hanover, New Hampshire with Jarrett Burke at Jarrett Burke's restaurant, Lou's Restaurant and Bakery, with none other than Gunny. Gunny Sachs was there again. Wonderful to chat with him.
Love that picture, bro. Love that picture.
Yeah. Got a nice picture. That's up on the Facebook group as well. So, hey, let's chat about Sal here. Sal is, as I mentioned on the show, one of our early guests I've known since high school. And Sal ain't far behind. I met Sal when I was a young, hard-charging death machine lieutenant in the Hawk missile batteries back in the mid-'80s. Sal was my first recollection of dealing with him was when he was in the adjutant shop. Real smart young man, but one of the few Marines that just was at ease around officers. We didn't bother him, and we maintained the connection over the years and have been friends ever since. Really nice young man, and now getting older like all of us, but left the Marine Corps and pursued his dream of flying. He's always wanted to fly. He's never done it commercially, except as a CFI. So I've known this man 35, 37 years, something like that. And he has some good stories. So we brought him on, starting off with his time in boot camp.
You know what? I never ever get tired of hearing boot camp stories. And of course, he had great Marine Corps boot camp stories. But what a humble, very professional and real human being is Sal Marinello. Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah, absolutely. Great guy. Smart as a whip. And like you said, humble, a great gentleman. And it's been a privilege to know him, and it was a real privilege to have him on the show. Talked about being, got to put a picture up in the live stream of him. He looks like he's about 10 years old in his Marine Charlies.
Well, he was on weight control because he was 1 pound over the minimum weight you could be and stay in the Marine Corps. So they made him eat double rations while he's in boot camp. He's throwing up all the time because he's got all this food in his belly. I mean, he tells it.
Then they're PTing the snot out of him.
Yeah, so he's constantly throwing up because he's got a full belly where he shouldn't have. Anyway, great story. Obviously perseverance and, will to succeed, all that. Nothing spells Marine like Sal's story.
Right. Including his last name, which they wouldn't use throughout boot
because
camp
Marine is in his last name, which is a great story.
Right.
Does not ruin it.
Yep, no, let's don't. So we talked about a lot of his flying, a couple really amazing stories, some things he learned early on, and it would behoove all pilots to listen to this, regardless of your experience level. We talked about Get-There-itis, which is a real disease affecting pilots, and it's fatal often. He talked about his Get-There-itis almost killing him and learning us a good lesson from it.
That's right. So, that's invaluable, actually.
We got this week's title from some training that he went and did. You can't make me airsick.
It's just like, you might as well have said, listen, hey, hold my beer, watch this. And I'm not going to run it, but that's kind of like straight up how it went.
Exactly. So, and then a real nice, humble story that he actually wrote in airfaxjournal.com about 6 years ago about getting to fly with his dad, who introduced him to aviation. And as his dad was nearing end of life, a very touching story. He wrote about it, or he talked about it. He wrote about it in Airfax Journal. I will put a link on sterowos.us/episode/80. You can go read that yourself.
Great story.
Wonderful.
Great story.
Wonderful story. It was indeed. what say we get out of the way?
Let's get out of the way.
This here is a true story.
Let's listen to what Sal has to say. And no ejection seat handles, no collectives this week. So, I don't know. Clear prop.
Clear prop.
Here comes Sal.
Get out of the way.
Tanker.
Clear the prop.
Through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see
there I
wasn't
was.
exactly fun.
Which is how all great aviation tales begin. And welcome. This is Fig coming to you from beautiful Kearney, Missouri, outside Kansas City. And where is my co-host Repeat today?
Co-host made it home from the far reaches of the world. Yeah,
Yes!
baby.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Here I am. Yeah, Repeat here. And we're welcoming a guest from Florida today, Sal, none other than Private Ello. We're going to get into that pretty soon here. Up front, just want to let everybody know, we had a guest on, back around show 12, I think it was, and I had known that lad for over 40 years, and Sal's probably the next closest there. I've known Sal for about 37, 38 years. First met him in the 80s when I was a young Hawk missile officer in the Marines at Cherry Point, and Sal was there. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks for
Sal.
having me. I appreciate it. It's very nice joining you.
Yeah, glad to have you. So Sal is a Marine, former Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, and did not fly in the Marine Corps, but is a CFI, certified flight instructor. He's got some stories about that. We got some stories about boot camp, all that good stuff, but want to get there. Let's start with your interest in flying, how you got interested, and then let's get back to some of the boot camp stuff, because that sounds pretty fun too.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the show, and appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yeah. And let me mention one other thing, too, quickly. Thank you again, Sal. Double aircraft tanker commander.
Double aircraft tanker commander,
God
Sal.
bless
That
you,
is
man.
too much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Well,
Thank
keep the
you.
show coming. I enjoy it. I use it on my runs, and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Nice.
So my interest in flying started at a very young age. My whole entire life, that's all I've ever wanted to do is fly airplanes. My grandparents lived in Howard Beach, New York. If either of you have ever flown into JFK, you fly over Howard Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when I was a young lad, we used to go to my grandparents, and I would just stand outside all day watching airplanes come and go. Very loud in those days in the 70s. My father always had an interest in aviation. He'd bring me to JFK Airport. We could go to the gates in those days,
Right.
look at the jets.
Those were turbo jets back then, baby.
Oh, loud. Everybody stopped talking. And if a 747 or a 707 or a 727 came over my grandparents' house, you couldn't hear each other talk inside the house.
Everybody there was a pause,
Everybody
right?
just stopped talking. I mean, those were the days. I grew up on Long Island outside Republic Airport and Zons Airport. When I was a young 8 or 9 years old, I used to ride my bike to Zons Airport, which doesn't exist any longer. And I just ride around the airport, talk to pilots, anybody who would talk to me about flying. I used to go to Republic Airport and just do the same thing. I could get on the airport and pedal around and just kind of learn, watch, and I was fascinated by airplanes.
Those were the days when you could just walk on an airport.
Wander out to the airport, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Zons Airport was really where I could literally ride my bike down the runway if there was no airplanes, and nobody would say anything to me.
Wow.
And so, I look back on it now, and it's pretty amazing. I'd go into hangars. I'd walk into hangars where airplanes are stored. Nobody would say anything.
Yeah, right. That would not happen today.
No,
ever.
I was just a dopey kid. All I wanted to do was be around airplanes. Joined the Marine Corps. I know we'll touch on that, and had an opportunity to start to learn how to fly in New Bern.
Okay.
So you two gentlemen remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And my father actually took me on my first airplane ride when I was 15 years old. He was taking lessons at a Republic Airport. The CFI allowed me to jump in the back of the airplane. And I knew right then and there I would fly airplanes.
You were
I'd
screwed
find
at that
a way
point,
to fly
right?
airplanes.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
I didn't get a chance to fly for a while, but I knew right then and there. And so I've known my whole life. I've always wanted to be a pilot.
That's kind of a recurring theme amongst our people, so to speak.
Yes.
It really is. We've only had a few that, hey, you want to fly airplanes? Well, I don't know, I guess. Here's an F-15.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Fly the jets.
There's that. What was that? That was father. That was father that just kind of stumbled into it. My roommate's going to, ROTC. Maybe I will.
I'll take the test. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
Here's the needle.
So you enlisted in 1983. Is that when you graduated from high school and went straight into the Marine Corps?
Actually, Fig, I enlisted in the Marine Corps between my junior and senior year of high school, 3 weeks after my 17th birthday.
Delayed entry program?
Delayed entry program. Mid-August, I decided I wanted to join the Marine Corps. The story behind me actually joining the Marine Corps was I actually went to the recruiter's office to join the Navy.
We've heard this before too.
Those too, yeah.
Navy,
I can't wait to hear this. How'd this go?
I had a license. I went to the recruiting office. I drove myself. I went into the Marine Corps recruiter's office and the Navy recruiter's office were literally right next to each other. And I went in and the Navy recruiter I had an appointment and he wasn't there. And I remember the Marine, I still remember his name. I won't say it. The recruiter said, young man, what are you doing? And I said, I'm waiting. I was sitting in the hallway. And he said, come in and talk to me. And I said, okay. And I went in and he said, you want to join the Navy?
Yeah. What's wrong with you? Don't you have any self-respect?
For 6 months? He goes, what do you want to do? I said, I don't really know. And I actually said this, I want to fly airplanes. And he's like, you need a college degree to join to fly airplanes. But if you want to join a service, and he held up a brochure with the dress blues. Of course. Do you want to wear this uniform? Or do you? I'm not making fun of my Navy brethren out there.
Or do you want to wear bell bottoms?
And they used to wear that hat, that Toby cover.
Yeah.
And so he goes, what do you want to wear this uniform? And I said, I want to wear that uniform. Needless to say, my parents were not happy. My father was not happy. So my senior year in high school was pretty easy because I already knew what I was doing. And I went off to boot camp in July of 84. Right. I graduated high school 3 weeks later. I was headed to Paris Island.
Nice.
So did that year? Did your senior year count as a year of your enlistment?
No.
It was a delay. Okay.
No.
I was just curious.
Unfortunately for me, I could have. They offered for me to work in the recruiting office, help recruiting other kids to join the Marine Corps.
Yeah. And
I would get points so that I could graduate boot camp as a PFC. But I didn't do it. I was too interested in girls and having fun. Yeah. I knew I was I graduated probably the bottom 10% of my class, and I didn't care at the time. I knew where I was going.
Yeah, so, you had a gig lined up. You knew
I had a gig lined up. People couldn't believe me I was going to do it. I had really long hair. It was the 80s. It was.
We called that Fig Mac when we were at the basic school. Yeah, but I got my air contract. You knew what you were doing. Screw it. I don't need to work hard.
Yeah. So I went to the store. It's an interesting story. The day I actually got dropped off at MEPS. I don't know how officers do it, but enlisted folks I went to Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn. There was 250 other young people there waiting to get entry that day. They do a physical again, and they send you off on your way. And I remember just about 2:00 in the afternoon, there was a Army drill sergeant or looking dude who looked like a drill sergeant. He stood up and he said, how many of you are going into the Air Force? Half the kids raised their hand. You're going to go to 8 weeks of the toughest training you've ever been to. Sure you're going to get marched and drilled around. Get on that. And he told everybody, get on a bus. How many people are going into the Navy? Another 30% raise their hands. You think that sounds hard? The Navy boot camp's 8 weeks long, is tougher. You're going to freeze in Lake Michigan or wherever they go.
Yeah.
How many people are you going in the Army? Everybody else except 3 of us raised their hands.
Right.
And everything we just said about those guys, you're going to Fort Jackson, 10 weeks, you'll be living in the mud. And when those guys left, there was 3 of us. One of those guys ended up being my platoon at Paris Island. And he looked at us and went, you're screwed.
You guys are screwed.
Get on the bus. I mean, he just shook his head and goes, you're screwed. And off we went to Paris Island.
Beautiful.
Paris Island. All right.
Absolutely.
So that was July of 84, because it's not cool and humid Yeah, I mean, it's not hot and humid in Paris Island. You look at that picture.
Oh,
Yeah,
holy
so
shit!
those
That's
those watching live. I've got one Private Marinello
Yes.
with his
That
family
is
on
a
graduation day.
steely-eyed killer if I've ever seen one right there.
Yeah. So that's my mother and my brothers. And of course, I look back at that. I can't believe they actually let me join the Marine Corps. When I was 17 when I went off to boot camp. And when I got to boot camp at MEPS that day, I had made weight for my height by about a pound.
Wow.
So when I got to Paris Island, you go into receiving. It's usually 3 to 5 days, depending on when you're going to go to your regular platoon. And I went to 3rd Battalion, which didn't have air conditioning at the time. It was World War II type barracks. And when I got to my platoon, they put me on double rations. And I was the most hated private in the platoon because everybody's starving because they're burning 3,000 calories, 4,000 calories a day.
You didn't have that. You didn't have any meat to waste, man.
None. Oh my God, double rations. People hated me. The other recruits hated me.
Well, were you a runner in high school? Were you a track guy, like a long distance guy?
I wasn't a high school athlete, but I've been a runner my whole entire life, Fig,
Okay.
and I was actually training to run the New York City Marathon. Even though I didn't know how to join up for it, I always wanted to run the New York City Marathon. So I was a runner. I was skinny. I played a lot of baseball and hockey.
Yeah.
I was 5'10" and a half, maybe 5'11", but the weight at the time was 124 pounds, I think. If I remember correctly, I would have about 100, $125.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You were just soaking wet. You might have blown away in the typhoon. We never found you again. Holy shit.
So I get to my platoon. They give me double rations. But the first day we get there, the drill instructors pick you up. So you get just like the movies, screaming and yelling, doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm standing and they give you a number. I don't know if they do this at OCS, but they give you a number. And the number is based on your last name. So you're in alphabetical order, but numerical order. And I still remember my number. It was 38. And one of the drill instructors starts yelling, Private Ello. And I'm standing there at attention, not responding. Private Ello. Nobody's saying, is there a Private Ello in the platoon? And he's walking, and he's, that drill instructor walk they have?
Oh, yeah.
Comes right in my face and says, are you Private Ello? And I go, no. And he went ballistic. How do you address yourself? He says, your last name's Marinello? And I said, yes. And he goes, you have the word Marine in your name. You have not earned the right to use that name. From this point forth until you graduate with the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, you are Private Ello.
You have not earned the right to use your own name.
I have not earned the right to use my own name. But then he says, you are in the wrong spot. So find where Private Ello would stand, sends me to the other side. I get there. The other drill instructor says, what is your last name? I give him my real name. He says, you don't belong here. Go to the other spot. For about 5 minutes.
They're playing ping pong with your backside.
That was my welcome to Paris Island, South Carolina in July of 1984, and it was probably 100 degrees that morning.
Sure.
Yes.
Gotta love our DIs, man. God bless those men. Amazing comedians to come up with crap like that.
Oh, on the fly.
How did they figure that out? Now,
On the fly.
Name, obviously.
Yeah.
They must have thought
They're going to go, this is never going to fly. This guy, we're going to screw with this guy on day 1, minute 1. Oh, that's great. Private Ello.
They put me on double rations. I felt like they were picking. This is really true. To this day, I was like, why are they picking on me? I don't understand why I'm getting double rations. I'm throwing up my food because everybody else at least gets 5 minutes to really eat. I got to eat. Then I got to get up, go through the line again, eat again. Guys are giving me the devil eyes because they're starving and I'm puking food. It was Paris Island. It was one of the best experiences, obviously. But
sure, but still.
When they called me Private Marinello, and I don't mind, saying my name, but when they actually used my last name at the day they give you your MOS and where you're going and they become human or they talk to you, I didn't respond.
Oh, because you're right.
So you used to be in Private Ello. That's
Private Ello.
funny.
It's a trick.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Wait, they're going to screw with me again.
They're going to screw with me. That's exactly what I was like, I don't know if I should be responding to this. And
so hey, Sal, did you get fill out a wish list for your MOSs at boot camp?
So when I enlisted,
or was that a recruiter ASVAB score thing?
So it's so for me, I wanted to, at the time, I felt like I wanted to do something with technology. I was a geek, a computer geek, wasn't a programmer, but I loved technology. So when I took the ASVAB, they said I could go work on the Hawk missiles. So that's how I met Reed.
Okay.
I kind of knew I was going to get a technical OS, but had no idea what it would be. So when I got my orders from Parris Island to Fort Bliss, Texas, I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. I had no idea what the Hawk was, or no idea.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So for a guy that didn't, study and academics wasn't important, you must have scored pretty good on the ASVAB to get that MOS, right? Because they don't let slouches in that. So
no.
You're just smart. You never applied yourself before.
I didn't apply myself till I graduated. So I finished the Marine Corps, and then I went to college, and I realized if I wanted to have a decent career and own my own airplane, my whole life was meant to be able to afford to fly, own my own airplane. So I needed to find a profession that would allow me to do that.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to apply myself.
Okay.
And the Marine Corps gave me the discipline and the type of discipline you need to do that.
It's funny how motivation can affect right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So I'll add one more boot camp story.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm 125 pounds, and they are PTing me like crazy every day. Part of me is like, why
guys, you want me to gain weight? You can't keep burning my calories.
That's exactly right. I could not pass the obstacle course. Every time we went, I could do the run.
The obstacle course or the confidence course?
Confidence course.
Confidence course. Okay. Yeah. So there's two different ones. Confidence course is the one that has like the 360,000 foot tower.
Yes. Yep. I couldn't climb ropes. I could do the runs. I can do the sit-ups. But when I first got to Parris Island, and you guys probably know, and anybody here who's been enlisted knows, if a lot of people who are a little heavier, they get remedial training. So they leave the platoon and then they get attached to a different platoon to graduate. And I found out from my senior drill instructor, I met him at a bar actually once while at Camp Lejeune. That's a funny story. But he told me that they were worried actually because I needed to pass the confidence course to basically graduate in my platoon. And so what they were doing was they were running me ragged for upper body strength. So they were having me do mountain climbers, push-ups, pull-ups. My discipline was everything for upper body strength. When I graduated, I finally was able to pass the confidence course. And when I graduated, I weighed 150 pounds.
Oh,
damn.
I gained 25 pounds in boot camp.
Yeah,
right.
It was probably not fat.
No.
It was muscle.
No.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
Yeah. Great experience. Never want to do it again.
No, right?
That's another common theme. No one ever wants to do that again.
We're glad it's over. I don't want to do it again.
So my senior drill instructor he was a good dude. And I found this out later because I was at Camp Lejeune with some buddies of mine. We were going to a bar. And in those days, the drinking age was 21. But if you were a Marine and you had a fake ID, so we used to hand each other, hey, Sal, you want to be 21? And one of my friends who was a corporal gave me his ID. He had a mustache. I did not. And all they would do is just look at it. And the guy looks at it and goes, you're not this guy. I said, how do you know? It was the guy at the front door, the bouncer. He goes, because you're so-and-so. I was like, how the F do you know that? He goes, I was your senior drill instructor. You don't remember me?
Oh, shit.
I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, how are you doing? He goes, go ahead. I went and talked to him. He's like, you had to build up your upper body strength that you wouldn't have been able to graduate boot camp.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I don't know. My DIs are people I would never forget. I guarantee it. I don't care where I saw them ever.
Well, once he said it and I looked at him, I went, oh, okay. But, I'm trying to look the other way. I don't want him to see that I don't have a mustache. I'm trying to get into this bar with somebody else's ID. So I wasn't really looking too hard.
Right. Yeah. Don't look him in the eyes. Don't. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
All right. Scream. Oh, geez. So we met at LAAM Battalion.
Yes.
I'll pass this along about Sal.
You guys
was one of the few troopers that was always, he just could interact with officers. He was not intimidated by us. And where did you get that, Sal? Because most of the Marines were not that way. Most young Marines are tight-lipped and very reserved around officers. And at some point, you broke out of your shell. He worked for me in the adjutant shop. I was the battalion adjutant before I went off to flight school. And it was a great working relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting, Repeat, because I think my mom was very much a casual, didn't believe in a lot of hierarchy. She believed in rules.
Yeah, but no caste system.
Yeah, we didn't call our friends and neighbors Mr. or Mrs. We called everybody by our first name. I think part of that comes from that. My father was a cop, police officer. So we certainly I grew up around authority.
Sure.
But I think just my personality, I was never intimidated, never have been in all the years, even since I left the Marine Corps. Generally speaking, I see them as people. My mother used to say that all the time. Politicians, the way that people are, they're people. So I never really had a challenge. At the third, interestingly enough, how I ended up in the adjutant's office was at Charlie Battery, where I was. My kind of, not casualness, because I always got good pro and con marks. I never got in trouble. But I think a lot of that was taken as aloofness and not cared, which I did. I cared about my job and I took it seriously. But I don't think people saw it. The gunner down there at the time just did not like me. And I think part of it was they felt I was not regimented, maybe is the right way to say it. But it was never that. It was never that. Everybody called me Sal. You know that, Repeat.
Right, yeah.
All the other Marines called me
from
Sal.
A lieutenant colonel, bathalion commander, all the way down to his buds,
That's
other
awesome.
corporals. And
I need to get the third LAAM. LAAM is an acronym. LAAM is Lima Alpha Alpha Mike. I need one of you guys to define that for our listeners.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sal.
So it's the Light Anti-Aircraft Missile Battalion.
Nice. LAAM.
LAAM.
Anti-Aircraft Missile, which was the Hawk.
Which was the Hawks, and the Stingers were LAAD, LAAD, second Light Anti-Aircraft Defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. And when I met Repeat, I was the mailroom clerk, and I told Repeat,
don't screw with the mailroom clerk.
Don't screw with the mailroom clerk. 1986. 6, 7, and 8. The only way you could talk to other Marines, if you didn't, nobody could afford long distance phone calls.
Hell no! There was no interwebs. There was no emails, and shit like that.
So I played the system as good as you can. I never stood duty.
Sal, you didn't play the system, sir. What you did was exploit the seams. You exploited seams, as all good Marines do.
Follow the rules. These are the rules. I'm going to follow them.
I don't know how they did fitness reports in the squadrons, but the adjutant's office did the fitness reports. And we had a computer for the day at the time called a CPT. Repeat probably remembers this. So we did the
floppy disks
reports.
the size of your laptop.
Oh yeah, 8-inch discs. We figured a way to do it so we could save them and just reprint them and make small changes. And I set up a printer, and it used to take typists 15 minutes. And if you guys remember, if it was in that little blue section of your fitness report, the OCR reader at headquarters wouldn't read it, and I used to get officers all the time knocking on the mailroom door. Hey, Sal, corporal, hey corporal, can you? I used to take heavy sighs. I go. Well, sir, I have duty. Early on, I was like, I have duty, and if I didn't have duty, I could work and I could try to help you out. Let me see if I can find somebody to stand in for you. It took me like 2 seconds to do it. They'd turn around, they'd disappear. I'd go over to the machine, put it in. take care of it, pretend it took me an hour, and, So.
I love that. That's awesome. That is,
it was good
that
stuff.
Is awesome.
Yeah, I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I was telling whoa, oh,
Sal, you
Sal?
okay?
yeah,
Sal, you okay? Holy shit.
yeah, I'm okay. Holy, yeah.
Is everything okay? Something sounded like it hit the floor.
I'm good. That was
Okay.
my so there I was glass.
Oh,
Shit.
didn't break, did it?
No.
Oh,
no.
all right.
Whew.
Anyway, so
Damn it.
Cool.
Okay, so you how long? So who got to the LAAM unit first? Was it Repeat or was it you, Sal?
Sal was probably there first.
I went. Yeah, well, I think Repeat. You were already in the. I think
I got there in
Repeat
August of
and I showed up
'85.
at the battalion at the same time. I was in one battery. Repeat was a battery officer in the other. I went to the adjutant's office probably a year before Repeat got up there, and I was sent up there to do, any task that the adjutant at the time, a lieutenant, who was a Mustang. I ended up working in the mailroom, becoming the mailroom clerk, but I got up there probably a year before Repeat.
So you got to explain what a Mustang is.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Hey, we need to cover that. What's a Mustang?
Yeah, so there was a first lieutenant who was the adjutant officer. He came from a battery as well. He was a former enlisted Marine. He was a gunny at one point.
Wow. Yeah,
and,
a lot of
and
experience.
and ended up getting a commission. A great dude. Ended up going to the Naval Academy as a Naval Academy Marine officer, running with the Marine officers that run, I guess, battalions over there. He was a great guy as well. So I was very fortunate to have met Repeat, this lieutenant, and another gunner who I worked for, along with Lieutenant Colonel of the battalion, who one of the things I always tell everybody is I learned true leadership with those folks, the way they led that office and the Marines around them. I learned a lot. So
that was the gent we were talking about the other day, right, Sal? That lieutenant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yes.
Quick story on that, Fig. He and I are both support platoon commanders. He's got Charlie Battery. I've got Bravo Battery. And he showed up at the battalion or at Charlie Battery, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks after me. And between our offices was a thing of plywood that went up to about 12 feet. And from 12 feet up to the ceiling, there was chain link fence, so the Marines couldn't hop over the plywood and steal gear from each other's battery. Not that would ever happen, but, if they were to get the idea and be short of gear or need some gear, maybe they'll do that.
Sure.
So I'm sitting in the office reading some FM Fleet Marine Force manual, on how to count bobby pins for your platoon, whatever it was. And so he checks in, and he's down there at the new platoon. He's now the Charlie support platoon commander. And the platoon sergeant for that platoon sits down with him and says, sir, here's how it goes. I'll muster the troops in the morning. I'll PT them. I will handle all disciplinary problems. I'll keep them motivated. The only time you need to ever deal with the Marines is if I have a discipline problem I can't handle, then we'll bring it to you. But, you need to be pretty much hands off, show up at 7 a.m, leave at 1600, and basically stay out of my way.
Yeah. How did that go?
And so he sits there, he listens to the whole thing, and I'm sitting there listening to the whole thing too, going, oh, okay.
Okay.
And then he goes, so that's how it works, huh, Staff Sergeant? He goes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's how it works. He goes, didn't work that way when I was a gunnery sergeant, but he's like, whoa. Yeah, you were a gunny, sir? Yes. In fact, I was.
Yes, in fact, I was.
Yeah. So 3 years later, I'm sitting in the S4 at VMA 223. That very same staff sergeant walked through the door. He was a career planner, the guy who got Marines to re-enlist at VMA 223 3 years later. That same staff sergeant who was blowing smoke.
Are you kidding me?
I swear to God.
All right, offline, you gotta tell me his name. I gotta see if I remember this guy. That is funny.
Yeah.
It's a small Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It is a small Marine Corps. And he was always, the smoke blowing type. It's like, okay.
Wow.
That's how I remembered him.
Yeah.
As soon as you said his name, Repeat, I knew exactly who you're talking about.
So, all right. Hey, let's tell you what. Let me run a a quick thank you to our sponsor, and we'll come back and we'll start talking a little bit about a little bit of flying, some of the flying we do. So here at So There I Was, we're proud to welcome as a sponsor Robin's Bird Brain Designs. Looking for a unique and thoughtful gift? Well, look no further. At robinsbirdbraindesigns.com, they specialize in custom slate coasters that are sure to impress. Imagine having a set of coasters personalized with your squadron logo and call sign, or even your aircraft tail number and instruments. Whether it's for your aviation enthusiast friends or a special someone in your life, their custom coasters are the perfect way to show that you've put some thought into getting that something special for someone truly special. But it doesn't stop there. They can also create coasters with any organization logo and printing that you desire. From military units or sports teams, they've got you covered. Their high-quality coasters are made from durable slate, ensuring they'll stand the test of time. So why settle for ordinary gifts when you can give something extraordinary? Visit robinsbirdbraindesigns.com today and let them help you create custom gifts that show just how much you care. Because when it comes to thoughtful presents, they've got your back. Okay, let's chat a little bit about some flying.
Yes, sir.
So you took your first lesson at Cherry Point, well, at New Bern, right?
Yep. I went up to New Bern one day and jumped in at 152 and had my first lesson at some flight school there. I actually still have it in my logbook. And was, as I've always, when I went with my father, I was hooked. And I paid $25 for the hour for the airplane wet with the instructor.
Wow. How about that?
I won't get you 25 seconds today.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Really.
And I did that. I was getting out of the Marine Corps when I got discharged. I came back to New York. I went back to New York, and I would just learn. I'd take lessons periodically to stay engaged. But it took me from when I got out to 97 to get my private, about 10 years.
Okay. So,
yeah.
Well, that shows some stick-to-itiveness.
That's stick-to-itiveness right there.
Yeah.
Well, once you have it, once you want that, it's like, you just never lose that.
Never. And I took lessons. When I look back at my logbook, I did a lot of night flying because I was working. I had a family. I had a daughter. So a lot of the early days were the only time I could fly was at night. So I had a lot of night lessons. And I remember the flight school saying, well, you should come during the day. And I said, well, I can't. So I'd go do night lessons, really a lot of night landings because you can't do a lot of maneuvers. So early on in my logbook, I have a lot of nighttime just for the fact that was really the only time I could fly. But I just wanted to fly. Whether there was a person in the right seat, I just wanted to fly. So that was when I could afford a lesson, I went and took a lesson.
When were you able to get it consistently?
In 96, my daughter was 2 years old, I had done pretty well. I had worked for a company. I had owned a company. And I just made a decision I went to Islip Airport on Long Island and went to the FBO. And I said, I need to finish. I had a broken logbook, so to speak, a lot of gaps. And I just made my commitment. And I finished from the time I started to when I finished was about 5 months.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And
that's a lot of consistent flying then to do that. So, all right. Yep. How about your first solo? How long did it take you to get to your first solo once you made that commitment then?
Once I made that commitment, it's funny because I was looking at my logbook I was talking to somebody about it and they asked me, and I thought it was a lot quicker. So I was like, oh, this should be I did it in 3 hours because I've been flying for all those years. It was about 12 hours before I soloed.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't remember it. I don't remember my first solo.
Wow.
Really?
Nope. Don't remember it.
So to 10, you got to have a minimum of 10.
Yep.
Dual to go. So really, you weren't really far off the min. I don't know what I
would have thought with those gaps that you would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the gaps, I probably had about 20 hours. So really I was a little over 30 hours, but it was about 10 hours a little bit over 10 hours since I started flying regularly.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
and I see instrument commercial CFI. So how did that progression go?
So
that's not easy. That's a lot.
Yeah. For the first decade. So I got my private. I don't remember my first solo. Interestingly enough, I remember the first flight. I took my mother-in-law at the time and my wife, and we went for a flight. I remember that like it was yesterday. It was the first flight where I could actually take somebody with me. But I don't know. For some reason, I can't remember my solo. And I did pretty much the same thing I did until I really I flew, I stopped flying. I had my daughter, I was working, I was going to school. I was still trying to get my bachelor's. And then in
That's a lot of balls.
I'm sorry?
That's a lot of balls in the air.
Oh, yeah. And working and traveling every week. So for my job. So it was in 2003, I graduated with my bachelor's from a university in New York. So once I finished that, I started to focus on my instrument, my commercial. I bought an airplane. I bought a Mooney at the time and started really focusing on and thinking about making flying more of a vocation in terms of a profession. And so I just accelerated pretty quickly. When I bought my Mooney, I had about 175 hours. And that was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And, I'm close to 1,000 now. So, and you think about the time, the difference in hours and commitment. So I got my commercial, my instrument, my commercial, took a break and got my airplane, the single engine C.
Hey,
that was great.
What kind
of
what did you do that in? What kind of aircraft?
I did it in a 182 amphib, which was the best.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best.
Nice.
I would own an amphib in a second if it was practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. I did it down here in Florida.
Burning a lot of gas to drag those pontoons through the air, though.
Oh, my gosh. And, the insurance is outrageous from everybody that has those planes. The insurance with the floats on them are outrageous.
And the interesting thing is, in my training for that, I never got above 600 feet. Never got above 600 feet. And there's a funny story to that. So, all my regular flying at the time, there's two things really happened. One, when I got my private pilot's license, I did something really stupid, scared the crap out of me and made me a much better pilot. But when I was getting my seaplane rating, there's a thing. Do either of you have your seaplane ratings?
I don't.
No, I've flown an amphib. Yeah. I've flown a lake amphibian.
Oh yeah, they're fun. So there's what they call a confined lake landing, where you have to come really close to the treetop, pull the power, and drop on the lake. The pontoons will slow you down on short lakes. So I was taught by a guy to be really treetop level. When I went for my check ride, the DP was scared out of his life because I literally was treetop level. So at the end of it,
scraping some green chlorophyll off the bottom of your.
He asked you where you learned that, right?
He goes, "Where'd you learn that?" I go, "The flight instructor at your school." He was not a happy camper. He still passed me, but he's like, "That's a little too low. You got to give yourself a little bit of more room." I said, "That's how he showed me how to do it." So
I'm just doing what I got taught.
And when I was a fresh minted private pilot, I went to Glens Falls, New York, which is up by Lake George, and to visit my family. They were on the lake camping, and I had rented a 172. And I was supposed to leave for Singapore the next. This is Get-There-itis at its best.
Oh boy!
This was a Saturday afternoon.
Get-There-itis is a fatal disease, folks.
Oh yeah, and I was supposed to leave for Singapore that Sunday evening. So I wanted to get home. It's a pretty far drive, and it's a rented airplane, and it's low ceilings. It's 800. I'm waiting at the FBO. It's 900. I'm waiting at the FBO. It's 1100 ceilings. I take off. No instrument rating.
Yeah.
Brand new private pilot, maybe a year. And I end up in the clouds.
Oh.
And, I tried to look at the attitude indicator and remember what they taught me in the 1 hour or 2 hours at the time they gave me. And when I broke out, I was in a descending left 45-degree bank, Jeez. 500 feet from killing myself.
Boy.
Yeah. That was a huge wake-up call for me. And if you know anything about upstate New York, there's mountains and hills.
Oh, yeah, there's terrain. It's for real.
For real terrain. So when I made the turn, I unloaded the airplane and kind of turned back to the airport. I realized that besides the fact that I was in that death spiral, right? You're pulling on the airplane thinking because you feel like you're climbing and you're pulling and you're actually increasing the spiral. I just happened to break out in time to offset it. But when I went back to the airport, I realized I was going to try to go another direction. Had I done that, I would have hit a hill. hit one of the little hills there. So that taught me a valuable lesson as far as aviation and Get-There-itis and aeronautical decision making.
So can one of you guys put in non-aviator terms what Get-There-itis is? Because that's a thing. That's an actual thing.
Yeah.
Can you try that? One of you guys, Sal? Repeat.
Yeah,
that?
I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Do it.
So Get-There-itis is, and it kills more general aviation people in general aviation airplanes, probably flying in bad weather. But what it is the sense that you're flying an airplane or you're somewhere and you have to get home to do something. Either you have to get your family back home and they're with you in the airplane. You have to get home to have a meeting, or you're a businessman and you're in an airplane and you have to get somewhere and make the meeting. So you fly the airplane in conditions, or an airplane that's not in the conditions that you'd not normally would, to get to where you're going. And they've called that Get-There-itis, and it's killed. A friend of mine was killed in an airplane crash in Connecticut for Get-There-itis. It's terrible. It's a tough lesson to learn. Pilots put themselves in positions where they shouldn't because they feel like they have to get where they're going.
Yeah.
And there's pressure to do so by outside forces, friends, family, airplane, whatever it may be.
Well, thank you. That's a really great definition.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
And it is actual. That's a thing. You can go back and look at general aviation accidents for years and years and years in the past, and it is actually a causal factor.
Yeah. Kennedy killed himself. I mean, that's why Kennedy died. Right. Kennedy died. What was his name? John Kennedy Jr.
JFK Jr.
Yeah.
He killed himself and his wife and her sister because he wanted to get to Martha's Vineyard in a night where he wasn't an instrument rated pilot.
He got in the death spiral, just like you kind of described.
Yeah.
It's the fluid in your inner ear tricks your body into thinking you're actually doing one thing when in reality you're doing another.
Yeah. And that's why basic instrument flying is not something that you just go out and do.
No.
Sticks really put I don't know if you Sticks put he put the definition of hyper mission focus as such that you take unacceptable risk.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Well done, sir.
And interestingly enough, that incident shaped my flying career of 30 years. To this day, I have been really hyper. I flew with my daughter. I flew with friends. I've repeat, and I've been in an airplane together. You have to be cognizant.
Yeah. And you told me a story. Let me back up briefly about that too. And here's the thing. When we flew together, the one time I was sitting in the right seat, and I think it was for weight and balance because my daughter came along.
Yes.
But I wanted, because I was too fat to sit in the back.
Yes. True story. So Repeat wants to go see his house. I had flown up in the morning, and he's asked if his daughter can join, and I said sure. And he wanted his daughter to sit in the right seat, and I went, can't do it. Weight and balance. Would we have airplane flown? Yes, but it's an example where the thing I've learned about as a flight instructor, procedure and policy and guidelines are there for a reason.
Yeah,
it's how we stay alive in aviation.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting.
And I was just going to make the comment that he flew a really nice airplane and was very careful to make sure he knew I had thousands of hours in airplanes, but he didn't assume anything that I understood something about his airplane or knew anything. Just, hey, here's the things we're going to do. Very professional, straightforward brief. And so that's how he approaches his flying. It was impressive. But then you were telling me the story, and I forget the exact detail. It was a gent you sold your airplane to, and then you helped him bring it to.
Yeah. So in between that airplane and the Mooney that I just sold an airplane recently, and he came down to Florida to pick it up, and his insurance company wouldn't let him fly it until he got 5 hours with a certified flight instructor. I'm a CFI. I've got Mooney time, but the story is he wanted me to sign him off without the time. So I said, no. Number one, no. If you crash and kill yourself, the first thing the FAA is going to do is go, who signed you off? And they're going to come from my CFI certificate.
Yeah.
So we decided to fly the airplane from West Palm Beach area to Charleston, South Carolina area. There's an airport closer, smaller airport to him. And the weather that day was kind of crappy. And I kept telling him, I said, listen, if they only have one approach, there's no tower, it's low ceilings. If that's the case, I'm going to land at Charleston because there's 6 runways, there's 5 approaches, ILSs, RNAVs. I said, I'm going to go where the airport has more approaches and a tower. And he kept debating me the whole way because he really wanted to go to his local airport. It was just easier for him. And at one point I said, I'm making the decision. I'm the PIC. It's still my airplane and you don't own it yet. And I went to Charleston and he was not happy. And I remember telling him, you will kill yourself if that's how you think. I was very clear to this gentleman. You will kill yourself if you think that if you fly that way. I'm just giving you advice. Don't fly that way for the future. So, and he was not happy but it's kept me alive. And general aviation is, I know Repeat knows, and I don't know, Fig, if you fly GA, but
I do. I have a beach. I've been there.
Oh, okay. So you know the deal. There's a lot of crazy GA stuff that goes on.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And more than a few professional airline pilots have bought the farm too, doing stuff in their GA, because I don't think it comes naturally to us to go, okay, these are the limitations and all that. We have a joke at work, which is, if you think the weather's so bad you're not going, you haven't read far enough to find the exemption that allows you to go.
That's right.
So, but we've got the equipment and the training and the ability and the approaches and everything's all set up for you. That's not that way in general aviation.
No.
It all falls on you, and
You're not.
you tend to forget that. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that besides the fact that I wanted to expand my expertise in aviation to become a CFI, was watching a lot of, I think you saw my Cirrus. So I bought a Cirrus and I got exposed to a lot of different folks and watching them not do run-ups. I watched a friend of mine take off. We were leaving Plymouth Airport. Pete, you're probably familiar with it.
Yep.
In Massachusetts, we went for lunch and they took off. He was in a rush. So he took off with a tailwind against where the traffic flow there was a guy who took off in the opposite direction.
What?
So,
What?
yeah. Yeah. I've seen some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You guys have seen some crazy stuff. So as a CFI, I've seen some crazy stuff as well. Students do really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at one of the notes. It has to do with one of that. Can you tell that story?
Sure. So I get my CFI. Of course, the first thing is people all want me to do their flight reviews because they figure they don't need to really do the flight review. These are pilot friends. Sal's a CFI, so he can sign me off.
Yeah.
So I would make people actually do the flight review. But a friend of mine wanted to get his commercial certificate, and so we go out and we do the pre-lesson. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do Chandelle. Here's how you're going to do the Chandelle. This is what I expect you to do. And he's okay. And he's experienced pilot. We're flying a 182 actually. And I demonstrate the Chandelle, which is a climbing, turn. You guys know what it is. And so I ask him to do it. And as he's doing it, I'm sitting there and I'm looking out the right wing to look at the 90 degrees. And I have a bad habit of crossing my arms in the cockpit, which is a terrible, terrible habit. So my hand isn't protecting the yoke. And as we're making the climb, he lets go and he gives up on the maneuver. So the plane, it's slow. It's getting ready to stall. And now it's going to wing over. And I feel it. And I look and I go, and he's not flying the airplane. I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I can't do it. And just as the plane kind of wings over.
Oh, boy.
So I said, just like that kind of stuff. So we get back to the airport. And I said, just fly us back to the airport. We're going back to Islip. He knows how to do it. He's done it 100 times. And at 100 feet, he goes, your airplane.
What?
100 feet. We're on approach. We're 100 feet. I got my hands up this time. And I'm just watching and he goes, your airplane. Now, you guys know, pilots who are listening to this, it's not so difficult to do, but if you're not expecting it, it's
you want to pre-brief. Hey,
What?
I'm
Yes.
going to give you the airplane at 100 feet.
What the hell was his thing? Did you? I'm sure. Surely, when you got on the ground, you said, "What the f was that, dude?"
Yeah, I said, hey, so and so, what happened? He goes, I was having a bad day. I said, you were having a bad day.
You almost had a
You're-
really
you're
bad
not
day.
flying anymore with me.
Oh, good golly!
So I ended up, when I became a CFI, the FPO had a lot of students who were at the college or high school. They would come and they would take introduction flights.
Yeah.
So I had a student come with his father, and he didn't really want to be there, had no interest to be there. But his father wanted to come. So I kept saying, if you don't want to fly, you don't have to. No, I want to. I could tell his father was pressuring him. So we get in the airplane, 172, we taxi out, I'm flying, take off, I'm in the right seat, we go out, to a practice area. And I was describing what I'm doing. You want to make the house is bigger, push down. You want to make them smaller, pull up, right? Yeah. You want to turn left. You want to turn right. He goes, I do it on the flight sim.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to hand you the airplane and then, and just do a climbing turn, whatever you want. And this kid, I give him the airplane. I do my bad habit, which is cross my arms. And this kid put the airplane in a 50 to 60 degree left turning climb bank.
Oh,
Literally in like that. I mean,
Nice.
He just went like this with the airplane.
Well, he's used to flying a flight simulator.
That's exactly what it
he
was.
never feels any of that.
He thought he was flying a flight simulator. And it,
Yeah.
I know I'm not a yeller, but I yelled. At that, so.
What the fuck are you doing?
I think it was probably the best non-Chandelle I ever seen.
Should have said, hey, kid, you want your commercial ticket? Let's go back and get you.
Oh, God. So I recover that. And then we're coming back into the airport. And I always ask everybody, do you get sick? I've never been sick. Do you get sick? Never get sick. And this kid starts just emptying his stomach.
Oh, no.
Within 500 feet on final. He's just hurling it at the instrument panel. Hurling it on me. Hurling. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him. He was so.
Before, my mother's almost 98, and so she's been to the hospital a few times recently. When she goes to the hospital, I go visit her. I grab those puke bags. And I keep those in all the pockets in my airplane now in case anybody's ever sick. But so either those, and if you don't have access to those, even the plastic grocery shopping bags, put 2 or 3 of those together so they don't leak. But man, do not go up in a light airplane with
you. Are you a sympathetic puker, Sal?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
No. I have never been seasick, airsick, motion sickness in my life. I did aerobatic training with Patty Wagstaff's team.
Hey.
And
very cool.
Yeah, in St. Augustine. And what they do is they actually try to make people sick. They give you this little thing to wear. And I kept saying, I'm not going to get sick. Nope. And it was in the decathlon at first before we flew the extra. And they said, everybody gets sick. I'm not going to get sick. I told them, I'm not going to. And they did everything in the world. We did inverted flat spins. The guy was doing an inverted flat spin and an extra. And I did not get sick. I told him, you're not going to.
Nice.
I'm just lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Sal, I want to talk about something that's in your notes. And I think it might be. Well, I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool.
Sure.
But it's in your notes, and I think if there's lessons, because how we learn is from mistakes and failures. So your CFI Checkride.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So in my, you see that in the notes. I think one of the things that I've learned, and I would implore, I know that you have a lot of military folks here and listen, but I'm sure there are people like me or potential pilots. And they give up. Aviation's easy to give up on because it's hard.
Right.
It's just, failures are hard if you fail.
Yeah.
And one of the things is I'm not a very good stick and rudder pilot to begin with. Everything I've ever learned in aviation, I'm the guy who can study the material and know it. I understand the procedures, but it takes me a while to get the feel, right? How to fly an airplane. Once I get it, good at it, but it takes a while. So I never failed the check ride. I start working on my CFI, and I had a really, really difficult time learning to fly from the right seat. I couldn't do my maneuvers, my lazy eights, my chandelles. I struggled really, really. It was a really difficult experience for me.
Because everything's all of a sudden backwards or something, right? It's just not.
I'm looking. I'm in old airplanes. I don't have a PFD in front of me, so I got to look at the airspeed indicator to my left. The view is different, and I've always struggled learning new maneuvers from whatever they are differently. Interestingly enough, instrument flying was easy for me because it's a procedure. It's following a procedure. It's following a guideline. So those were easy. And the day of my CFI Checkride, I did my oral was 7 hours. So when you take in 7 hours.
Ow.
And then you were supposed to go fly after that?
And then we were going to go fly. So people who are in aviation know this, but for those that don't, you can suspend your Checkride. You can finish the oral part and then say, I'll take my practical of the flying part. But I was 3,000 miles away from home. So this is a form of Get-There-itis.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. I was hungry. I wanted to finish and get my certificate and be on my way. I was in California. And I got in the airplane, and the flight examiner, the DPE, was like really difficult. He was an old Navy guy, just an old Navy stickler for every little detail, which is fine. CFI candidates I get.
Yep.
So we're in Gillespie Field. We take off. First thing he does is go, give me a short field landing. I said, okay. And interesting fig is that he asked me for it, and then the tower extends me 2 miles.
Okay.
So now I have to extend the downwind 2 miles, and as I turn now, it just threw me completely off. I'm exhausted, and I don't know how I messed up a short field landing, but I have power. I got an airplane. I've done that a million times.
Right.
And I probably overshot the spot on a 3,000-foot runway by 1,000 feet.
Whoa.
I would have ran off the runway had I not, end up literally, he just failed me on the spot. I asked to continue on because you can continue on your check ride.
Okay.
And finish other.
Yeah.
He said no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that was really tough for me, but and at the time I was pissed, typical, it's not whatever. You blame yourself, you blame other people.
Yeah.
I went back, I did it. And then I used that. I tell that story to fly in school, the FSDO on Long Island, where I was until I moved here. I knew the FSDO guy pretty well, and he had me talk about that to pilots, about failure, even CFIs fail, and use that as an example how to get better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So FSDO is the Flight Standards District Office, and those are the FAA guys who deal with all of that. Your licensing, and they investigate things and all that too. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you, Sal. That's rough. That's nobody, and I know we are harder on ourselves than somebody else is. So that had to be a kick right in the junk.
Oh yeah. I had to leave there and catch a flight back to Chicago, where my company, I spent half my year in Chicago, and I was a grown man who'd never struggled, never failed the check ride. I'm not the world's greatest pilot, but to fail was brutal to me.
In fairness, I think the CFI is probably the most failed ticket that anyone goes for.
Yeah.
Because from much is expected.
Yes. Yeah. What I've been able to do is use that, though, to work with other pilots and folks and, talk about how I learned a tremendous lesson. And I try to pass that along to people when I'm working as a CFI or working with students or working with somebody who needs help. It's a way for me to say, I've been there. I know what it's like. It's a terrible feeling. And, here's how I handled it. Here's what you can do. And I failed an easy thing. You guys know. I mean, short field landings are basic to any pilot.
Yeah. Yes, but. Yes, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, and who's ever had the perfect flight, right? I mean, I do all the time, but
I am so close. I am so close to having the perfect flight all the time, and then I screw something up.
The day repeat, a couple other flying stories real quick. Repeat, if you remember, we flew our Cirrus up. We were looking at that Mooney at your airport, at the airport.
Yeah.
And so I've been hearing about tailplane icing forever. the airplane that I was flying wasn't Fiki, but had weeping wings on the main wings only, but they didn't have tailplane Fiki or weeping wings. And that was the Cirrus we were flying. And we're flying along on autopilot, and the autopilot just kicked off. And what I realized is we were getting icing, and it was a tailplane icing, because what happened was the autopilot kicked off because it couldn't trim anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were talking to Boston, and I actually asked for lower, and they said no. And
okay, I'm not asking.
I'm not asking. People I was with, I said, well, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to have to, I'm going to descend. Do you want me to declare an emergency, or do you want? Because I was the pilot flying, I was in the left seat, and the guy ended up giving it to me because we were right around Boston at the time as we were heading up to New Hampshire.
Sal, can you define for our listeners weeping wing?
Sure. Some airplanes for ice protection, it's no airplane. I don't care what you fly. I don't know what the Harrier was like, but 737, 777.
I'll tell you about that. You're going to like this, Sal. But go ahead.
Nobody likes ice. No airplanes like icing, right?
Yeah.
It makes the aerodynamics and difficult to fly, and eventually they'll fall out of the
Changes
sky.
the shape of the airfoil, adds a bunch of weight to the airplane, can cause a premature airflow separation, and then you violate rule number 1, which is don't get dead.
Don't get into icing, which I did. Right? We did. There was 3 of us in that airplane that day, and
gosh.
So weeping wing there's a technology, an alcohol-based fluid that you store in the airplane, and they have these holes drilled in titanium on the wing, and it will put fluid on the wing and keep the ice off, or help to keep the ice off, or melt ice if you have it.
So it's a de-icer, anti-icer system.
Yep, de-icer and anti-icer.
Thank you.
That some airplanes are rated to be an ice, which is fascinating to me. And this airplane was not. It was emergency only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was just a safety feature, just to get you out of trouble.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey,
I had the parachute, but the Cirrus has a parachute,
right?
So that was, that's the safety feature.
So, Sal, do you know how what the anti-icing, de-icing system's like on a Harrier?
I don't.
It's a throttle.
Seriously?
Yeah. You go fast, it comes right off. I am not joking.
Is that all? Is that all jets? All
yeah.
5? Is that all? Wow.
Yep.
Okay. There you go.
We had no leading edge.
Yeah, nothing.
De-ice, anti-ice. No. You go 400 knots, everything comes right off.
No.
Yeah.
It's
weird.
But now all the airliners, they use most of them use hot air. They bleed air off the engine,
hot.
and they heat the leading edge of the wing. They heat the leading edge of the engine nacelles, that sort of thing. But and you can tell you're getting into it because it will start building up on the windscreen, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
windshield wiper nuts.
Yeah,
we use the windshield wiper nuts, and the term is, how do my nuts look?
Yep.
Your nuts are clean, bro. Okay, good. Hey, you're getting ice on your nuts. It's time to put the it's time to put the wing anti-ice on.
That is so funny. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, icing is terrifying.
Yeah,
icing is terrifying. All right.
So between a Mooney and a Cirrus, what's your favorite airplane that you've owned?
So I've owned 2 Moonies and 2 Cirruses. The Cirrus is comfortable. It's like sitting in a Mercedes. It's got the best avionics. But we had full avionics, the best autopilot, as good as probably anything that any of the airliners use. They're fantastic.
Is that fiber? Is that glass? Is it fiberglass?
Yeah. So the Cirrus is a fiberglass airplane.
Yeah.
For those listening, it has a parachute, a whole plane parachute. So if you get in trouble, you can pull it, and it lets the whole plane down. It's the best technology,
and it's pretty fast too for a single engine airplane.
The 22, the last one I had is 170 knot airplane.
Yeah,
so it's
fast.
That's pretty good. The Mooney is my favorite airplane. The Mooney Ovation that I had, the one that I sent some of the pictures to repeat as well. The latest one, I could fly that airplane. It would literally, you could trim it on climb. I get that airplane. There's a Mooney. That's my first one. You could trim that, cross your arms, and trim it for 120 knot climb, and barely keep your feet on the rudders, and the thing would just stay wherever you put it. It stayed.
That's great. Very stable.
It's amazing. That is a great airplane. The Mooney is a fantastic general aviation airplane. It's fast. It's comfortable. It's not as comfortable as the Cirrus, but it's comfortable flying. Cirrus is very trim heavy, so you're always fighting. If you're hand flying it, trimming it, it's electric trim, doesn't have a manual trim, so you're always fighting the pitch in a Cirrus. That's a little too technical for a lot of people. But
Yeah. Okay.
it's a great airplane. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
When Sal said fighting the pitch, he's talking about how heavy it is on the stick for nose up and nose down forces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah. So I'd like to, we've been going a little bit over an hour here, so it's time to start thinking about wrapping it up. But Sal, I'd like you to wrap up with a recap, if you would, of the story that you wrote for Airsick magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was a great read, by the way. Tell us what issue it's in so people could go and find it.
I don't know. It's online, but I'll have to, I can maybe send you a link sometime, repeat.
Okay, we'll try and put it in with the show notes. All right.
Yeah. So my parents, there's my dad. So that's the Mooney.
If you're watching on video. Yep.
Yep. You're watching on video. So
Very nice.
if you're watching on, my father has Alzheimer's or had Alzheimer's. He's since passed, but he was my inspiration for aviation, as I talked about early on. And I wrote an article for Airfax about when I got my private pilot's license, there were 4 flights that really had an impact on me. One, the one my father took me on a lesson, my first ride in an airplane. And years later, when I got my private in Florida, I took my parents, I rented an airplane, took my mother around Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral, and actually flew right over the shuttle landing runway at Cape Canaveral on a 150. And it was beautiful. They don't let you touch, 100 feet above it. They tell you, and it was a beautiful flight. I ended up taking my father to Vero Beach to go to the Piper Factory. My father loved flying, was just really appreciative of having his son there. And the whole time we were there, we'd talk about how his son flew us down for the Piper tour. And years later, when I ended up owning an airplane, my father had Alzheimer's, and he used to get sick. The reason my father gave up flying was he would get sick. My father would get sick in a bathtub.
Airsick.
So,
Airsick in there.
Airsick. He would get airsick every flight, every lesson. And when he got Alzheimer's, I decided I would take him up. As he was cognizant enough, I could get him out of the airplane. He had some wherewithal about him. And so I took him up for an airplane ride, and he didn't get sick. And I took him for a ride around Long Island, and it was a chance to just share aviation with him again.
So Sticks put the link up. It's on the video.
And thank you, Sticks. It was just a chance for me to share aviation with my dad towards his end of his life as he was developing Alzheimer's.
That's awesome. And I think you talk about in there that even as he lost more and more of his memory.
And that story in Airfax magazine, the online magazine, just goes into a little bit about how my love of aviation came from my parents, my father, and the chance to fly with my mother one time before she died. She died from cancer not too many years after that, and having a chance to fly with my dad and having a chance to share aviation with him. He's really the one who got me into it. And he would remind people his whole life that my son became a pilot because I got him to fly.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great
it was
stuff.
great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I'm here.
Did we lose
Are
repeat?
you not hearing me?
No, he's here.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
He's not here. He's not hearing you. He's not hearing you. But hey, thank you for that. Thank you for that story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I didn't have anybody in my family that was in aviation, and I had to, I was kind of on my own.
Sure.
But once I got a private pilot's license, and and I took my parents flying, my mother would go flying with me. My dad would never. He did it one time. He's like, okay, I got the exit block. I'm not going to get in there back in your thing. You can't.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I think my mother and my father were as proud of me being a pilot, almost as proud of me as being a Marine. I mean, they were very proud that I joined the Marine Corps and made it through boot camp, and as a proud parent would be. And I think my mother and father were as proud of me being a pilot and accomplishing that through, it's hard to do.
If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
People listening would know that. It's hard to get your private pilot's license. particularly today, the costs and the challenges.
Right. I have a question to ask you, Sal.
Sure.
What about flying? What is it about flying? You got in the back seat with your dad on his first on his first flight. So what is it about flying? Can you go? This is what I love about it. Because I can tell you what mine is, but I want to know, because I'm curious. I always ask everybody why. What is it that you like about flying? What is it that sold you on day one about flying?
So when I was a kid, Fig, I think it was the idea that you can take this machine. It sounds cliche-ish, and you're leaving the ground and you're flying a machine. It fascinated me. Airplanes have always fascinated me.
Yeah.
As a pilot, when I literally learned and sat in the left seat and flew an airplane, what appeals to me is I'm a procedure person. I love procedures. I love rules. Those things appeal to me in aviation because it just allows you to do things safely, right? So that's appealing to me. That's part of my personality.
So maybe structure. Structure,
yep.
Yeah.
Structure, rule, those types of things. But ultimately, when I'm flying an airplane, I'm fascinated because I fly with friends and I fly with my brothers who never want to fly. I can teach people how to fly. Nobody wants to learn. No, I'm not interested in learning. But I'm fascinated. Not everybody wants to control this machine in the air.
Right. I know,
when I'm
right?
doing a steep turn, even today, as somebody who's been flying for a long time, and I show somebody what a steep turn is, I'm just in heaven. Or just a basic maneuver or landing an airplane. I'm just it's almost indescribable.
Well, and if it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
Fly airplane.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. I never, other than a few times, I lost an engine once with a friend. We were in a 150 coming back from a dinner in Texas, and we were going to his airport.
How did that go?
It's really interesting. We were on the downwind. We were in a 150. We had dinner. It was nighttime. We were coming into an airport called Arlington, just southwest of, you probably know it, of Dallas, DFW.
Yeah.
And we were on the left downwind, and we were just midfield. Engine just stopped turning.
Nice.
He's pilot flying. I'm pilot monitoring. We had a good CRM. Even he's a pro guy. And neither of us panicked. I just kept reminding him, watch your airspeed, watch your airspeed. I called the tower, let him know that, we've lost our engine. And we landed probably 3 minutes later. Like it was neither of us had angst or anxiety. And we just landed on the runway. He just put it right down. I was just reminding him, watch our airspeed. It was night. So the visual clues, the sense of speed gets lost on you.
Right.
And so I didn't want him to not miss the fact, to not have that sense of speed. So I kept reminding him, just watch your airspeed.
Well, that's big SA,
Yes.
Even thinking about that, that's big SA, Sal. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. The interesting part of that is when we landed, he was able to make the first taxiway and the engine started.
Shut the front door.
Yes.
Of course it did.
Out. So, it has carb heat. It just had an engine rebuild. They put the wrong size tube hose on the carb heat. So when he put the carb heat on, the hose, because I think it was a little, that day, if I remember correctly, it was a little humid. The hose got crimped and shut and didn't give enough fuel to the engine.
Yeah, so the carb iced over.
The engine just stopped.
Yeah.
But when we landed and he put it in by habit, the engine started again.
And it fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Sal, are you hearing repeat by chance?
Can you hear me, gents?
I can hear you repeat. Sal's not hearing you.
I can't hear you.
So you just triggered this. You just triggered this, Sal. The last airline trip I just flew, there was a guy on guard. We were leaving Houston, Texas, and climbing out probably through 20,000 feet. And we had guard tuned up, and it was a kid in a single engine airplane, and he's on guard. He says, "Hey, I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I just lost my engine. And I really don't know what I'm close to. Can anybody out there help me?" Of course, he got more help than, and finally people showed up so they could get it. Anyway, the kid landed. somebody said, "Hey, tell me what you see." And the bottom line, it was daytime, by the way, and it was a really nice day where it's clear and million, meaning there was no clouds in the sky. You could see forever. And he found a runway. He had no clue where he was. It was a little bitty private airport, and he got it on the ground, and everybody was giving him props over guard. Hey, nice job, boy, nice job, son.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't hear repeat, but I'll tell one more story. So,
please do. He can hear you. I can hear him. We'll get this done, baby.
Okay, so I sell my airplane a couple of months ago, and I go to a flying club, and I want to get checked out so I can rent an airplane because I love to fly. Right, that's what I want to do. So they have a Cessna 172 retractable gear.
Okay.
And they'll rent it to me because I owned airplanes with retractable gear, so they're a little selective.
Sure.
So the CFI dude that I meet him down there. We go through the paperwork. He says, "Okay, we'll check you out." We get up and get in the airplane. We head off to an airport to do some touch and goes. He wants to sign me off that I'm competent. And on the way up, he's just argumentative with me about everything. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. And so I'm not arguing with him. I'm just
okay.
All right. What do you want me to do? He didn't like that I chose 500 feet above an airport to come in and do the turn into the pattern, and that's too. You don't have to go 2 miles out. It's not busy. I said, well, I'm going to go my way, do my thing. So we land, and I do a gear down check 3 times, and I do a traffic clear check every time. So I do gear down, no traffic, gear down, no traffic, and final gear down.
Yeah. Sounds pretty prudent to me, Sal. I don't know what the problem is.
I don't know. Sounds pretty. And he said, you don't need to do it 3 times. Well, that's what I do. I had a Mooney. I've had 2 Moonies. I've owned these airplanes. Yeah. This is my procedure. I'm going to do it my way. Fly back to the airport. Land. Right? Same thing. Gear down, gear down, gear down. Land. He says, leave the airplane. I'm going to do another checkout.
Okay.
So you don't have to tie it down. He signs me off. He takes off with this other dude who's an airline pilot.
Don't tell me what happened.
He's an airline pilot. You know where this is going.
There's a gear up landing or something coming. I got
those who have and those who will.
They go to the same exact airport, and they do a gear up landing.
I saw that coming a mile off. Yes. Yes. Then, you don't need to check 3 times. Come on. Just get it over with, Bob.
He didn't check 3 times, apparently. They do a gear up landing.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Well.
And
that's brutal.
The argument between them is who is the PIC,
right?
Because afterwards, who's the PIC?
Yeah, well, it's got to be the instructor.
Yeah,
checking him out, right? Because it was a checkout.
It was a checkout, and the guy wasn't current, so it has to be the instructor.
Yes,
that's the pilot, the airline pilot's out because he wasn't current. It has to be the instructor.
Yeah,
if I was current, so when we were flying, I said I'll be PIC. So I took PIC.
Okay.
But in that case, so it got the airline pilot. But that guy landed gear up, dude.
Well, I saw that coming a mile off, especially when you said, hey, this is why, I don't know about you, repeat. Is your airplane retractable?
It is not.
Your Tiger? Okay.
No,
well, I'm scared to death of doing gear up landing. I probably check it, probably more than 3 times just because I'm freaked out about ever landing gear up. I don't want to be that guy. Hey, Sal, we got to wrap this up.
Yep. Okay.
And,
thank you for your service, sir.
Yeah, and so since you can't hear repeat, he has already said thank you for your service, sir. And I would say the exact same thing. Marine, thank you for serving our country in the best service ever, right?
No other service.
I got
no offense to anybody else, but Marines are different.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a military organization.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
It is. It is a military organization. Regan said, as opposed to some of our sister services. Yeah. Not that the Coast Guard sticks. Not that the Coast Guard is not a military service. Yeah. It's not really. It's because it used to be under the Department of Transportation. We understand that. That's good. Oh, Sal, can you stand by while we do our little exit thing? Do you have any? You got any closing comments?
I do. I want to say I'm humbled. I know that you've had aviation giants, Colonel Spicer, and I'm humbled that you've included me. I know that my background isn't as austere as you two and everybody else, but thank you for including me. I've had the privilege of knowing Repeat for a long time. Fig, I appreciate the chance to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sal.
And Fix, thanks for adding that stuff on the screen there.
Sal, listen, everybody has a story, and just because you didn't shoot MiGs down in Korea in an F9F doesn't mean what you have to say isn't interesting, because we have listeners that have no aviation background, and they love all these stories, and you have a great story. The fact that you went into the Marine Corps knowing that I want to fly airplanes. You just didn't know how you were going to get there, but you knew you were going to do it. And you know what? You're flying airplanes, and that's awesome.
No, thank you. Thanks, Vic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, repeat. He can't hear you, but I can hear you, and you're going out. You want to wrap this thing up with me?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. We've got a couple other thank yous besides Sal that we need to get out there. First and foremost is Dave Hamilton over at Backbeat Media. Yeah,
thank you, Dave.
Backbeatmedia.com handles all the advertising for this show. If you've got a show you want advertising, reach out to Dave Hamilton at backbeatmedia.com. And he's also been a mentor teaching us how to podcast. So you're hearing this because Dave knew how to do it first. So
yeah. If it wasn't for Dave, we'd still be trying to figure this out.
Right.
Thank you, Dave.
And if you're trying to figure out some of the stuff that we've mentioned, where might you go?
Hey, we have a glossary on our SoThereIWas.us website. And if we've used a acronym or a term that you're not aware of, check there first. And if we've been amiss, well, you can send that request to SoThereIWas.us, Sticks at SoThereIWas.us, because he is on it. As a matter of fact, he's on it right now.
Yes, he is.
Repeat
other emails, fig at SoThereIWas.us and repeat at SoThereIWas.us. And got some cool merch out there with the logos that Sticks designed, by the way, for the show, the banners and the logos. Thank you, Sticks.
Sticks is a man of many talents, and that logo is amazing. And by the way, repeat, are you wearing the new hoodie right now?
I'm wearing the new hoodie. Yeah, I've got the black one because the banner on the back looks great with black. The banner has a black background, and his logo on the front chest there.
I like it. How big is is there something on the back of the hoodie?
There is.
Can you turn around real quick?
If you're watching there, I don't know if you...
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Oh, that's badass.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Yes.
And if you want a hoodie with a different color, I also have a second hoodie up there with no banner on the back, so that it doesn't clash with the green and the white and the blue and all that stuff. But
that's badass. Yeah.
We need to thank Brad Silcott over at BDSAviationPhotography.com for allowing us to use some of his images. Those are amazing. Several of them are on our Facebook page, facebook.com/SoThereIWas.us. We have a group there. Come and join it. Most important thing you can do, though, is share the show.
Share the show. Share the show.
Right?
It doesn't cost nothing.
Tell other people about it. So put the show on pause right now. Call 2 of your friends. Tell them about the show, and then come back here and finish up. And then the other thing you can do for us is rate the show. Give us a review. How many stars?
5.
5.
It's 5.
Not 4. 5. Don't ruin our perfect record. Help us out here. Go to SoThereIWas.us/rate or SoThereIWas.us/review. Either one of those will get you to the place where you can easily drop a 5-star review on us, and we would be humbled and appreciative if you would so do.
Yes, we would.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that wraps it up for this week, really. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, any advice for him, Fig?
Uh-oh.
Any advice?
Hey, don't sit on the ejection seat handle.
Don't do that. Stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
You heard him say it.
It's over.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
No! It wasn't!